Alright, welcome to the first fly we're going to tie here at Generation Wild as part of our little fly tying competition. This is the Caddis Larvae pattern. Basically, it combines more than half the skills you need to learn in order to tie a bunch of other fly patterns. One of the processes is called dubbing, which we'll learn here in a second. It's where you wind materials onto the thread and wrap them to form a body. Something that looks really buggy, like something a trout would eat, something you'd find in the water, in the rivers, along the banks. So to start, we're going to wind some lead onto the hook shank. This skinny part, this flat part right here is called the hook shank. And I just have a thin piece of lead wire, and I'm going to hold the one end with my left hand and wind the other end around the shank with my right hand. You can see it's just making a few tight coils. This is going to keep the fly down in the water when we're fishing it. I made about 8 or 9 coils there, and I'm just going to take and snip and pull and break off those tag ends and leave that sitting there on the shank. Now we're going to wind our thread on. In order to get your thread on the hook, what you want to do is hold one end of the thread, the tag end, with your left hand. I'm a right-handed person, in case you're wondering. Hold it with your left hand, and your right hand hold the thread bobbin. And you're going to basically lay the line perpendicular to the hook and wind back over itself. So it basically locks the thread, it locks itself down onto the shank. Once you get the thread locked down so it's semi-tight, you can see I'm pulling on it with my right hand, so that's pretty tight. You're going to wind, continue to wind back towards the bend of the hook and put some wraps in between those coils of lead. That's going to lock everything down, keep it from moving as we tie the rest of the fly. Now that my thread's locked down, I can take my scissors, this little tag end scrap piece here, we can cut that off. And that's our base of our fly right there. You can see the thread wraps. I'm wrapping them fairly tight. You can get a little loose with it, but I like everything to be real compact when I tie, so I tie my thread wraps pretty tight. We're going to stop right here before the bend of the hook. That's where we're going to stop our thread. This is where we're going to add the dubbing. Now the caddis nymph has 2 colors of dubbing in this particular pattern. There's so many patterns out there. And feel free to experiment with other materials if you find them at your fly shop or any sporting goods store. But this one in particular, we're going to add a green body to it. So I'm going to dub, and basically all dubbing is taking small amounts of material, whether it be rabbit hide, or I'm sorry, rabbit fur, or any type of synthetic, and we're going to put it between our pointer finger and our thumb, and we're going to twist it onto the thread. Small amounts. We don't want to use big clumps because then it'll just kind of gob up and it won't stay on the fly. So once we get a little amount, we're going to start wrapping it on there like a rope. And you'll see that it's forming a body, a really tight body. And as we get closer to the lead, we're going to form a little taper. We're going to add on maybe a little bit more dubbing. Maybe go back over a couple of spots that we tied, and we're going to try and make it look like a tapered bug body. You can see I'm adding a little more material. We're starting now to wrap over that thread. I'm going to add some more dubbing here to my thread. You can see I'm using small amounts. It's almost like you're dressing to go out in the cold. You just want to add layers. And now that I'm at the front of the fly, you can see I've got a nice tapered body, almost like the end of a worm. You're going to wrap a body probably about 3/4, maybe a little over 3/4 the length of the shank. And you can see there I stopped short. I gave myself some room before the eye of the hook. This is where we're going to add another color of dubbing. This is to make it look like some of the naturals that are in the river. When you're trout fishing with flies, you want to try and mimic what the trout are feeding on. And that sometimes includes changing colors, changing materials, making this fly look as buggy as possible. So here I'm adding a different color. This is going to represent the head, the thorax of the caddis. So I'm going to wrap that on there, and I'm going to make it thick. I'm not going to thin it out like I did the back end of the fly. I'm not going to taper it off. I'm going to make it look like it's like a head, like the thick part of a bug. So I'm just going to keep adding material. I'm just going to keep dubbing a little material on there. Maybe one more little clip here. Like that. And then on that last round, you can see I have just a little bit of fiber there left on my on my thread there. I'm gonna wrap it up behind the eye. This is where I'm gonna end the fly. You can see I'm making 1, 2, maybe 3 secure wraps. That's basically gonna be the end of my fly. That way I leave enough room when I tie it off, when I tie a knot here and apply some cement, that I'm not covering the eye of the hook. I can still slip my tippet and my leader through there. So now that I'm at the end of the fly here, I'm going to use my whip finish tool, create a couple of half hitches right here behind the eye, slip up right there, and then I'm going to snip the thread. And that is our caddis larva.